substances move into and out of cells using certain processes. One of these processes could be diffusion. Diffusion is defined as the spreading out of particles of a gas or a substance in solution, resulting in a net movement from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. This occurs because particles move randomly. So if there is lots of moving particles in one area, they are likely to move around so much that they eventually spread out to areas of lower concentration. In the lungs there is a high concentration of oxygen in the air and a lower concentration in the surrounding cells. So, by random movement, oxygen diffuses across the cell membranes into the cells. The oxygen then diffuses across the membranes of the cells into the body for respiration to occur. Carbon dioxide does the opposite journey to oxygen, so out of the cells in the body and into the air, and this is known as gas exchange. The rate at which diffusion occurs is dependent on three main factors. The difference in the concentration between the two areas is important. If there is a big difference, then diffusion occurs quickly, whereas if the concentration is more similar, the diffusion rate will be a lot slower. The term used when discussing diffusion is concentration gradient. This is simply the difference between the two concentrations. A big concentration gradient indicates a bigger difference in the concentrations. We can also say that diffusion occurs down a concentration gradient. We also look at the net movement of the particles in diffusion, and this means that we don't judge the diffusion rate by seeing how many particles went from the high to the low concentration. The net movement is equal to the particles moving into the cell minus the particles moving out of the cell. The diffusion rate increases as the net movement of the particles increases. This is why we can say that the movement is random, but the net movement is from one area to another. Temperature also affects diffusion rates. At higher temperatures the rate of diffusion increases because the particles move around quicker. Finally, surface area also affects diffusion rates. By increasing the surface area of the cell membranes, the rate of diffusion increases. This is because there is more area for the diffusion of substances to occur across. For example, some cells in the body have microvilli, which are folds in the cell membrane in order to increase the amount of substances moving across the membrane. Surface area to volume ratio is an important concept when it comes to exchanging materials. This is because diffusion works efficiently when there is a large surface area compared to the volume. The surface area to volume ratio for this box is 6 to 1, but for this larger box it's 2 to 1. In order to get materials from the environment into an organism's cells, diffusion is used. In single-celled organisms, which have a large surface area to volume ratio, diffusion across their cell membrane is enough for them to survive. However, in larger organisms, their surface area to volume ratio decreases. This means the distance for diffusion to occur across increases, and the exchange of materials with the environment would be more difficult. This could lead to not enough oxygen being transported to the cells and waste products not being removed. In order to overcome this, larger organisms have some specialised organs to make exchanging materials more efficient. In humans, an example of an exchange surface is the alveoli in the lungs. The effectiveness of exchange surfaces can be increased by increasing the surface area and having thin membranes to reduce the diffusion pathway. You can also increase the efficiency of exchange surfaces by increasing the concentration gradient. In animals, this is done by having a good blood supply and being well ventilated. If we look at the alveoli in the lungs, we can see that they are designed to have larger surface areas, have a rich blood supply and are well ventilated by the lungs and have very thin membranes. This means that they are suited for oxygen to diffuse into the blood and for carbon dioxide to diffuse out of the blood and into the air. The villi in the small intestine are designed to make the exchange of digested food molecules more effective. They are folded providing a large surface area, they have one cell thick walls and a network of capillaries for good blood supply. Fish also need to exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen. Fish have filaments, which have good blood supplies, stacked up to form gills. When water flows over these gills, the concentration gradient is established for effective diffusion. The roots of plants have a large surface area due to root hair cells. These cells have long hair-like parts to make the uptake of water and ions more efficient. The leaves of plants are thin to make the diffusion pathway short. These leaves also have stomata, which are gaps in the leaves, to help maintain a steep concentration gradient.